Rise today to once again discuss an issue of utmost importance to the people of Louisiana and to the millions of Americans who live in coastal states or in a floodplain. I'm talking, of course, about the National Flood Insurance Program, or as we refer to it, the NFIP. As you know, Mr. President, in the absence of reauthorizing legislation, this program will expire in the height of hurricane season. And its expiration would leave more than 5 million American families and businesses without insurance and therefore in limbo. For the good of our national economy, we simply cannot allow that to happen. That's why, Mr. President, I am requesting a vote to extend the program through hurricane season as either an amendment to our farm bill or after recess as a standalone bill. My amendment to the farm bill, Mr. President, is clean. It would be a 6-month emergency extension that would just maintain the status quo, and it will give flood insurance policyholders peace of mind while allowing us to put together a viable, bipartisan, long-term reform bill. Mr. President, as you well know, flooding is the #1 natural hazard in this country. It poses an extraordinary risk to both life and to property. Of course, families who live near oceans and lakes and rivers and bayous rely on the NFIP to protect their homes and businesses. But winter storms and snow melt also flood thousands of properties every year. And you don't have to live in a coastal state to have a bad rainstorm. In fact, you're twice as likely to have your home flood as you are for it to catch on fire, regardless of where you live. And I can assure you, regardless of where you live, if you have 20 or 21 inches of rain over a 2-day period, you're going to flood. I don't care if you live on Pikes Peak. And if you do happen to have your home or business flood, your normal homeowner's policy is not going to help you. You're not covered. That's why Congress created the NFIP. And that's why we need to continue it. But yet we find this program in jeopardy once again. I mean no disrespect, Mr. President, but Congress has repeatedly and consistently mangled the reauthorization of the NFIP. Despite being the primary source of flood insurance coverage for millions of American homeowners, Congress allowed the National Flood Insurance Program to expire 4 times in 2010 for a total of 53 days. Those disruptions had lasting effects for ordinary Americans. In June of 2010, for each day that the NFIP was expired, over 1,400 home sales were canceled or delayed. This injected uncertainty into a fragile housing market. It disrupted mortgage lending, and it sent our local economies into a tailspin. If the NFIP were to elapse this July, and unless we do something, it will elapse on July 31, the National Association of Realtors estimates that more than 40,000 home sale closings would be affected for every month. Mr. President, as it now stands, we have 21 Senate session days until the NFIP expires at midnight on July 31. And I regret to say that no meaningful progress has been made on our efforts to confect a reform bill that would continue and improve the NFIP. And to make matters worse, Mr. President, our friends in the House of Representatives decouple the NFIP from spending bills in the omnibus, which only increases the likelihood that the NFIP will be allowed to expire, which is unacceptable. Without independent reauthorizing legislation, either standalone legislation or an amendment to our Farm Bill, Congress stands poised to bring our domestic real estate market to a standstill and leave Americans in our coastal states and elsewhere exposed in the middle of hurricane season. We simply cannot afford, Mr. President, to let down that many Americans who depend on the National Flood Insurance Program. Again, I strongly encourage my colleagues to support this emergency extension of the NFIP, which I am working on along with Senator Cassidy, the senior senator from Louisiana, and whose support I greatly appreciate. We're a month away from a lapse of the NFIP. 21 working days in the Senate. And that's why I'm requesting a vote on a clean, short-term, status quo reauthorization that will get us through hurricane season. Thank you, Mr. President, and I suggest the absence of a quorum.